right. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for being here. We might have a few more people coming in, but I wanted to congratulate the ones that registered. We have 11 islands registered. That's sort of for the accumulation of our parent workshops. We have 3 this summer. One this tonight on reading, one on tech support and how to support your children with technology struggles and how to have healthy relationships with that. And our last one on speech and language. But tonight we're really excited because reading, as we often say in EEO, changes everything. It opens doors, builds confidence, strengthens learning across every subject. So we're excited about tonight's workshop, and we're so grateful to have our partnership with Lucy Project and Kristy Rios from the Lucy Project. Kristy's an educator and a literacy advocate, and she's worked with schools, other teachers, families to make the science of reading accessible and practical. So whether your child is just beginning to learn letters and sounds or developing fluency or growing into an independent reader, I know you're going to leave tonight with some strategies and some valuable insights. So please join me in welcoming Kristy Rios. Thank you.
Thank you, Lang. I appreciate it. Am I allowed to share now? Or okay, so just bear with me because well, thank you all for being here. Just want to make sure I share the correct screen because I have 2 screens. So please let me know if you all see this. Can everybody see this?
Yep, looks
Yeah.
good.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for everybody being here. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, EEO, for having me. I appreciate it. Um, Tonight is about, you know, our parents, our caregivers, our educators. We all share one goal, which is helping our children become confident and successful readers. So I designed this PowerPoint to connect the research behind the reading development and the practical strategies that you can use at home immediately. I hope that you leave feeling informed, encouraged, and empowered. So let's get started. So tonight we'll focus on 3 areas that I give all my parents in my other parent workshops here at the Lucy Project. It's about awareness, which is first and most understanding how children learn how to read, right? And one of them is being, what is dyslexia and how does that tie into reading, or not just dyslexia, but any other learning, reading disability or, processing issue. Second is action. So when I mean by action, I talk about practical ways to support literacy at home. And finally, we'll have time for questions. We'll have time, to get to know each other a little bit. And I want you all to know that every child is different, unique. So not everybody learns the same way. Okay, so let's begin with the big picture. Okay, before we start, I want to have this understanding that reading is a challenge and it's a challenge for some children. So before we get going, I want to just share that it's a crisis that's going on everywhere. And our brains learn to read differently. We'll talk about dyslexia again and the signs that we can catch, not just for dyslexia, but in general for students that have, having a difficult time reading. So these are some statistics that came out last year, just here in the United States. It can be overwhelming when I look at these numbers. When you look at, the fourth graders are reading very under proficiency, and then you have 1 in 5 kids that have dyslexia, or just a specific learning disability when it comes to reading and writing. So many children across the country are struggling with reading proficiency, especially here in Miami. We have very similar challenges. The important message is I'm not showing you these numbers because I want you, to say, oh, the kids are failing, but they're not failing. I just think they're not capable or they need a little bit more support. So over the years, we have simply always used instructional approaches that lie with was some research, but we have to somehow connect it how the brain learns how to read, right? So the encouraging news is that when we know that this is how the brain reads, or this is how we learn how to read the brain, right? That's how we know it works. So it's not a reflection of you know, intelligence, but or potential. There's a lot of things that can be done, right? So how does the brain learn to read? Unlike speaking, right? How we're doing right now, reading is not something our brains are naturally wired to do. We can't do that. Children learn spoken language through exposure, interaction, talking to mom, dad, aunt, you know, all the family members. But reading is different. The brain is built with all these different little connections and neural pathways to connect a sound to a symbol, to a letter, to a pattern. And we have studied the brain for decades, many, many decades now. And we understand that all these little different pathways are involved for successful reading and even working memory. We may be able to retell the information for reading comprehension. You know, what did you eat at lunch today? Even that basic question. For students that include dyslexia or any pathway that's, you know, or any developmental delays, that develops very different. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with our kiddos. It just means that they need a different type of instruction, which is more explicit and more structured, which is where the science of reading comes in. So this leads us into the most important ideas of the research, which is the simple view of reading. And it's a simple formula that I want to highlight because it is the foundations of the science behind how we read. So reading comprehension equals language comprehension, and it's multiplied by decoding. So if you don't have language comprehension, all right, which is the understanding spoken language, vocabulary, background knowledge, and if you don't have decoding, which is the simple ability to connect the letter to a sound to read the word, then many children who have dyslexia, many children have a processing issue when it comes to language or writing. Their reading comprehension will always struggle, no matter what. Even when one is weak, the other one is great. The coding side, you're not gonna have any. We both need a balance, right? If the coding is weak, reading comprehension is gonna suffer, even if the child understands the complex ideas. Um, so it's not just a decoding challenge, but it's an intelligence challenge. Not an intelligence challenge, but it's a decoding or language comprehension. So we need a balance. So I want to just talk a little bit about dyslexia because I think I had questions when I left the Bahamas. I just wanted to incorporate back to it. Um, so I want to ask, has anyone ever been told that if the child has been diagnosed with dyslexia or has the signs of it, has anyone raise your hands or you can say yes or no, been told that, hey, your child will grow out of it, or that's a vision problem? Has anyone heard that or something similar to that? Yes, no, yes. I see some shakes. Okay. But our brain, their brains, the sign is clear. If you're, I are people chat putting stuff in the chat because I can't find my. I'm sorry. If there's a question, Gabby or anyone can tell me the question. I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, me or Bonnie
Okay.
will make sure
Okay.
you get any questions.
Thank you, because I can't find it. Um, so that it's neurological, right? At the end of the day, their brains will not outgrow it. It's not a vision problem. It's more of a neurological. So it affects the brain process, the language, specifically to learning to read and to spell. Um, so I want to clear up some misconceptions. You know, dyslexia in general is not a vision problem, but it's not also caused by poor parenting. It's not laziness. It's not simply children will outgrow it. It's, you know, it responds really well to a structured literacy the same way, not just how our students who have dyslexia, but all of our kiddos learn how to read. That's just how our brain naturally needs that information. And this is not strictly for students who have dyslexia, it's for students in general who have a reading disability, a processing issue, they're having a hard time spelling. The science reading will help that. Okay. And what are the signs that we look for dyslexia, but also red flags for the students who are struggling really early on. Um, so before any formal reading instruction, you might notice some rhyming difficulties, right? Or in delayed speech, if they have a speech delay, they maybe started talking around 2 or 3 years old, or even just trouble, learning letter names and sounds. So around three, by 3-year-old, if they go to daycare and they're constantly hearing this rhyming song, and they're singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, ABCs, and they can't say that, then we wanna, okay, maybe there's something here. So by the time they go into kindergarten and they're still having a struggle, then there might be a specific learning disability related to language, related to reading, related to spelling. Okay, just things you want to keep in mind. As children begin to read, you may notice slow reading, guessing words, inconsistency, spelling, right? The flipping, the reversals, or you have a strong listening comprehension, right? When you tell them, they can give it back to you, but then when you ask them to write it, it's not connecting. It's really hard for them to put a thought in a paper, right? So when we're noticing these signs, it's not about labeling the child, it's more of identifying the additional support, and that's going to be more helpful for them. Questions? Okay. So what is the science of reading? This is what we use, and what here at the end, hopefully you will leave with some tools that you can implement at home. Okay, so I want to make sure, and I reiterate that the science of reading is not a curriculum or a program. It is a body of research, right? It has like 50 plus years of research that's gathered from not just one domain, but from neuroscience, psychology, linguistics, and education. So you have 4 domains that came together and decided these are how our brains of our students can learn how to read. This is how we can help them manipulate that, because their brains are that malleable that you can shape it. So when they're reading, it becomes automatic. So the research consistently tells us, for us to teach effective instruction, it needs to be very explicit, systematic. And when I mean explicit, it means it has to follow a pattern every day, the same thing. Systematic means we do follow a scope of sequence. So we have a order that we go in, because each skill builds on top of each other. It's sequential because we don't just skip to go to the last part, and it goes in order, right? And it's responsive to the student needs. It's diagnostic, so we use a lot of data to change our approach in the classroom or at home, or um, when we are maybe in a tutoring class, right? It's how do we as educators, or maybe you as mom, say, okay, my child is having a hard time with this word. How can I embed it in my day-to-day life? So these principles don't just benefit all children, but don't just benefit students that have this dyslexia, but it benefits all children. Okay. And I wanted to show this slide because it reminds us that dyslexia does not define the future, even if it's not dyslexia, something else, right? So many successful innovators, you have entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, leaders have dyslexia. So a diagnosis in general, dyslexia or not, could be something else, doesn't tell us what a child can or cannot achieve. And I want to make that very clear. It just tells us how they learn best, right? It's what I tell our students here who have dyslexia, who have, things that they process differently, that's your superpower, and we own that, and we're just gonna say, okay, this is how you're gonna do it, and that is your superpower. You're gonna own it and not let it, you know, hinder you, or make a label. Okay, so at the end, we want to unlock the potential and not limit it. Okay, now for you, my parents, we want to understand the why. We want every strategy that I give you is grounded on that science of research. Okay. So when we start talking, right, there's a lot of research that has come out recently that has said language starts before books. And this goes back to when they're like 6 months, right? it's one of the most important and most powerful things parents can do is talk to their children. Conversation builds language, builds vocabulary, builds background knowledge. It builds listening skills and comprehension. Um, every question you ask is a story you tell, a story they can tell. It's a discussion that contributes to literacy development. You're constantly talking, right? So I want you to think about yesterday, think about today, think about the most recent conversation you had with your child or any child. What was it about? Anyone. What was that conversation about? What topic came up? Anyone can share in the chat or speak up. Don't be shy. Think about a conversation, and I want you to think about how did you have that conversation with the child? Did you
Um,
listen? Mm-hmm.
I spoke with a child this afternoon. They
What
were
was it about?
helping with unpacking some boxes,
Mm-hmm.
preparing some supplies for summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give instructions for the child where to put things, that type of thing. The child would ask questions about some of the things that interest him from the box.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what you're looking for, but that was my conversation with the child.
No, that is the conversation you have with your child. Now, the reason I ask is because some conversations it could be just put it in the box. So how can we expand it in the box? Oh, that big box next to the corner, right? And if he asked a question, may I ask what question he asked you that interested him?
Um, did not know the name of something that I had in the box. So let's say it
Mhm.
was um, the let's say it was the paintbrushes. He didn't know the vocabulary to attach
Mhm.
to the item. Can't remember what it
Mhm.
was, but that's
So
that's what
you're
it was.
every day you say, hey, I'm sure you said it. That's anytime you have a conversation, it's a learning opportunity. And it's all about listening and talking, even playing. When we're playing, we're constantly talking. And we want to have these conversations, even if we're playing the most basic game of Uno, right? We all know the Uno or goldfish, right? It's asking, okay, do you have the if we're playing Uno, let's think about Uno. Right, because you're gonna first teach a child how to play Uno, but then as you continue playing with Uno, the student is going to get excited or the student is going to get upset. How do you have this conversation while you're playing? Well, I see you got upset. Why are you upset? We want to encourage to use as much words as we can every day, even when we're changing our diapers for our 2-year-old, right? When you're putting that 2-year-old on the bed or wherever you do the changing table. I'm changing your diaper. I'm putting up your pants. We're doing all these things, but you're talking until your tongue falls. And I think I said this at our Bahamas presentations when I went, but I mean that wholeheartedly because it starts way before books. That oral language, that development starts here, right? Because it leads to them being interested. Okay, what does that say? And it leads to conversations with more opportunities because that paintbrush could have been extended and can be extended to what do you like to paint? Do you feel the paintbrush is a soft and this is wood? What can you think you can paint with this? And you keep going with that conversation. You keep pulling and you extend it as much as you can. Okay. So oral language is the foundation of all reading. And it starts very early on. It starts 6 months. It starts actually, new research, it starts when they're in our bellies, in mommy's bellies. They're listening, they can hear you. So talk to them. My husband used to put the Bluetooth. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Um, and when I was pregnant, my husband used to play a lot of music and he used to put the Bluetooth little boombox. He would put it next to my belly and my son will react to it so much it's not even funny. Now my son is a dancer. Anytime he hears music, he will be the best dancer on the floor. He'll break dance for you. And that I think honestly started with that. So I always go back to those little instances. But there's a lot of research that has come out recently that it does start, in gestational. So just a tidbit of fun fact. So how can I encourage more reading at home? And these are the questions I believe you all answered that was provided by EEO. And it was a common concern. And I heard, my child doesn't like reading. And the science really tells us motivation matters. Reading doesn't only mean novels. Reading can include comic books, graphic novels, sports magazines, recipes, instructions, animal books, joke books, audiobooks, which I to see this not on my presentation. Audiobooks are really good. How can that be, right? It's counts because even if it's a comic book with just plain pictures, you're still talking about the book. You're still talking about what's on the picture. You're still talking about what they're wearing, what they're doing. You have the child describe back to you, what do you see? What do you think is happening? Right? A recipe. A recipe, when you're doing it together with grandma or grandpa or aunt, you're talking about the ingredients. And that leads to the vocabulary and what that is and where it comes from. It leads back to your culture and your background. That background knowledge is super important. Even a joke. A joke book is teaching about syntax, something that us teachers talk about later on, but it lets them understand um, jokes in general and they can, be able to be part of a conversation. Yeah, I heard my mom said that joke and this means this, right? And they can maybe tell that to another student. Oh, it means this. Um, Audiobooks is not on here, but audiobooks, um, you can do it in Spotify. They have different audiobooks, but I am going to share later on today a link where you can actually have someone who's gonna read a book for you and you can follow it. And the good thing about the audiobook is if you have the book and you're hearing it, they can follow along and they're learning that these have patterns and meanings and intonation. Um, and that will be helpful to kind of process that information because when they start reading, they understand this is how we read and there's a tone and there's a rhythm, right? So it teaches them that. Fun ideas you can do um as a family, as a unit, right? You can go to picnic. I encourage taking a book outside, going outside, having a reading picnic and have them involved in that process of, hey, we're gonna have a reading picnic today with your brother, your sister, or mom and dad, whoever is in your family. And I want you to pick out a book. And you're gonna tell me we're gonna go outside, we're gonna read the book together. Maybe we're gonna act out the book. What would this animal do in this book? And you're gonna act it out, you're gonna talk about it. A fun one I like to do with my own son. I thought about my son with these things as well. He is a kindergartner in August. So I am in the same boat as many parents, right? I'm in that stage of reading. He likes to read at night and we use a flashlight. Or we use stars and sometimes he likes to go outside and do camping and we put a blanket and we're reading a book under a flashlight. It's all about engaging the child. And just having that fun moment and then that moment that, oh, mom or dad is reading to me, whoever's reading to them, it's to have that connection other than just reading because he will tie or she will tie that memory to, I did this with my mom, I did this with my dad, and it makes reading enjoyable. It brings them back to this little nice memory in their mind. Bedtime ritual is also an important one, I think. I like to encourage a lot because it could be 10 or less. 10x, I think, is the max. But I have my son will want me to read 2 or 3 books, and I have him pick one book and we'll read it 3 times. And it's okay if you read the same book. Go Dog Go for 2 months, which is the book I've been reading, or construction worker book, and he'll memorize the book, but it's the language development because every time I read the book, even if it's been a month or two, he will come up with different things about a page, about the dog, or maybe we didn't see something before reading it, and that is the point, right? And family read alouds. This one is where everyone listens together, and it's similar to the taking the book outside or picnic, but having mom, dad, your sister, anyone in the family read a book out loud and taking turns and having um that student, that child listen to the reading itself so they can process the information, but also understand. Okay. And when you're reading, you're also pointing with your finger and having them follow. Even your child, if it's 6 months, someone would think that, oh, they can't, they won't follow. But no, you have the child be exposed to the print, be exposed to a book, be exposed to the texture, and you're still developing that language. You're getting that information. But 6 months, you're getting it. So it doesn't specifically have to be for older students, for 2, 3. It can start as early as 6 months. Okay. Now, take a moment and think about your child's favorite thing to do. Okay. Think about it. I'll give you my count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a way reading could live inside that interest? If, for example, I'll share first. My son loves dinosaurs, loves space. There are 1,000 books about dinosaurs in space, right? But how does that live inside them? What can I do? Can I go? Yes. Are you raising your hand? Am I seeing your hand raised? Okay. How does that, in that interest, how does reading can live inside that interest? How can we incorporate it in their daily lives if um your child's favorite thing? Is anyone willing to share? How are you going to incorporate it?
Well, I know for my son, he enjoys video games. And so, um, recently, because I'm trying to get him to read more, I found
Mhm.
a graphic novel that features like a video game main character. So I don't know how that's gonna go, but I'm trying to make a connection between his video games, and I think the book is called Press Start. It's about a
Mm-hmm.
rabbit, but it has like a video game kind of layout. So
Yeah.
that's
But
I don't
it's
know.
but I'm sure it'll interest him because it's something familiar and it's something that he's probably going to be that rabbit doing something that I do. He'll connect it back to him and he'll want to read it more and he'll be more engaged, right? Um, I love that because I didn't even know that existed. You see, I learned something new today. We always want to tie our books or our literature to something our kids like, and that something is really hard. But it's not something that we can't do. It's just I think it requires a little bit more hands-on and a little bit more research. And I'm at the end going to share one of the links to hopefully you can find all the books in there for all the different interests that our kids have, right? Um, Another question I know have many parents worry about reverse letters. In younger children, reversals are developmentally common up to age 7 or 8. And I say that with um lightness because in kindergarten it's okay. But by the time first grade and we're still doing some letter reversals like the B and the D, and I have your examples B and D, P and Q, but U and N is also another one, or the 6 and the 9 in math. Um, we want to best approach them with multisensory practice. And how do we do that? Um, I am going to ask you for everyone. I know your cameras are off, but I still want you to do it. Everyone raise your arm and let's skywrite the letter B. So I like to do one finger. So we're gonna skywrite and we're gonna bring our hand down. And usually I have a visual of the letter B so they can follow it, right? It could be handwritten, it could be on the refrigerator with a magnet letter, it could be wherever you have a B, write it so they can actually follow the B and top to bottom, because we always start top to bottom, and that's skill I want you all the parents to know. We start from top to bottom and then left to right. Okay. So the B starts at the top, we go all the way down, and then we do a little circle and we close it. And it's just finding a way that if they're having the hard time, to give them an example, a visual example they can follow with skywriting, right? That's just one way you can do it. But also, if you get two fingers, and if you're sitting anywhere, you're gonna get two fingers and you're gonna write the letter B on, if I'm on a table, so I'm writing B and I'm going and I'm tracing the letter B on the table and I'm saying B, B, and I'm saying the sound B, but as I'm writing it. If you're on a carpet, if you're sitting on the floor, you're gonna get two fingers again. You're gonna say B, but, and you're gonna have the visual, and they're doing it on the carpet with two fingers, or they're doing it if you're sitting um on grass, you're still doing it. It's the multi-sensory. Why? Because this is how they're gonna process information. They're gonna connect it to their brains, and where you involving gross motor movement. Okay, it is essential because it goes through all the different pathways and we want it in long term. So when they do have to write it, they remember this movement. And oh, B is this way, right? B and D. And on my screen is gonna look, it's supposed to be this way. Because I think it's backwards. Right? So the B is your the front part of the bed and the back of the bed. So bed. I don't know if I can, I don't know if that works. But I will share a visual for you all. That usually tends to help. I also like to do not just skywriting, but we have sand writing. And Luther has beautiful beaches. So when you go to the beach, okay, and I want you to incorporate it and say, hey, write me the name, or the word is bad. What's the first thing you hear? Bad. And what's the first sound? Well, okay, give me two fingers and let's write B. Right? You can encourage them to sand. It can be sand from there. It could be Play-Doh, right? We're gonna grab the visual of the Play-Doh. We're gonna have you all an example. Right. What you're gonna do is write the letter B in the paper the way it is. Right, the letter B anywhere. It could sticky note. I don't care how small, how big. The whole point is that you're doing it and practicing with them, right? And you're gonna have them match the Play-Doh is gonna go over the letter B. And then after they put the B on the paper or wherever you have it, then they're gonna get the two fingers and they're gonna go B. B spells B. And you do it 3 times, everything in threes. Okay, that's just one rule of thumb, everything in three. So if you're gonna skywrite, how many times are you gonna do it? 3. If you
Three
do
times.
sand writing, how are you gonna do it? 3. If you're gonna do Play-Doh and you're gonna do it, how many times are you gonna trace it?
3.
3. Everything in 3. 3
Three.
is your magic number. Okay. Rainbow writing is the same way. You just get a bunch of different crayons, markers, Sharpies, and you do it 3 different ways, right? That can be with anything. Okay, it could be not just with letter reversals, but with words they're having a hard time remembering, like what we call our high frequency words or our spelling words, right? If we're having a spelling test coming up or words that we need to know how to spell, this is one way you can do it. You can do it this way. Okay, it could be with sand, and they're saying it. So the word is red, R-E-D, red. R-E-D, red. And they're doing all of this, but with different multi-sensory ways, 3 different types. Okay. Questions. So we want to create large movements, even with our bodies, right? Can you make a letter B with your body? And they'll be like, no. Well, how can you, what do you miss if you need to make the circle? And then, well, maybe you need a ball, right? Maybe you have a ball and you'll be like, okay, if I stand here and put a B, it's just the idea of like, we want to make them understand that B is this way and D is this way. And the P is going down, right? And the Q is in the opposite because Q and P are very similar. You just gotta flip it, right? And same thing with numbers. Okay, we want to create those movements to reinforce the gross motor movement, to reinforce it in the brain. So when they go spelling, oh, I remember that movement. I remember how to spell B. I remember how to spell Q. Okay.
Question on that.
Yes.
specifically, if you're doing all of these things, because reversals is common, especially in the younger ones, as they
Mhm.
get older and you're doing all these things and it's still not seeming to help, um, when should you really be concerned? Like really panicking? I guess you don't want to panic, but you know it is dyslexia, and it's the only thing that's
Yeah, they're
stopping them.
processing, they're stopping. Kids who have dyslexia, honestly, they're only using the right side of their brain because they're the right side is all creativity, sports related. So you might have a student who is really good in creativity, art, sports, can learn a song, but when they go to spelling and on the analytical part, and decoding or reading comprehension, it lacks, right? So we want to make sure in kindergarten, it's common, it's part of the developmental, right? That's when we start. But by the end of kindergarten, and we've been implementing all these things, right? You spent one whole year already trying to practice this, um even the at least 6 months, and you still see, and you've been consistency is really important here. If you've been doing this 3 months straight and the student still gives you some type of reversal, or maybe he's forgotten, or they're supposed to, minimize, and you don't see that changing at least by the last year of kindergarten, and I will start being concerned. Because when we go into first grade, that's going to hinder them, because at that point they're expected to know, especially at the end of first grade, to have full reading comprehension, right? It's really hard to have reading comprehension if you're still being confused with the B and a D and the P and a Q, and you're spelling, and then you hear one thing, you spell something else. So at least by kindergarten, the end of kindergarten, those reversals should be very minimal. And I mean like once in the blue moon, like once a month type of thing. But if you're in first grade and then maybe you don't have some background knowledge on the student and you start implementing something and that's still happening, then I don't like to say panic, but then I say we want to raise the red flags. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we want to create, like I said, these stronger neural pathways for remembering. So this is why it's really important to do these different type of movements. We also have Wixie sticks. Do you guys know what Wixie sticks are? Those are fun too. They love those. I don't like them because they hold a lot of germs, but you're the parent. You decide. Now, another question is, my child read but doesn't remember what they read. Um, the most powerful phrase parents can use is, "Tell me what happened." Okay, and this is pure comprehension work. So it's rooted on the science of reading. It's rooted on oral language. Okay. Um, when we read, it involves more than decoding. Students need to understand the meaning to retain the meaning. So one simple strategy I want you to take away from this is, when you're reading or when you're doing this interactive things, you read out loud and you're involving the reading part. I mean, when they're reading to you, I want you to stop. Okay. And it's after every page. I like to, because I don't like interrupting as a parent. I just want my child to read, and then you say, okay, I want you to stop at the end of the sentence, at the end of the paragraph, at the end of the little book page, and you say, what happened? Why did it happen? Tell me in your own words. You want to stop talking, we talk. And that's all leads orally to the reading comprehension. Okay. Conversation is reading comprehension. Okay. It's reading comprehension practice. Um, and I want them then to tell you, you ask them, hey, what are 3 things you learned at the end of, once you finish the book? What are 3 things you learned? What are 2 interesting facts? And what's one question you still have? Right. This is something that you can implement every day as your strategy. Okay. So you're gonna stop, ask what happened, and talk. What what happened? Why did that happen? What do you think should have happened? And tell me in your own words. And that last part, that retell, is my key indicator for reading comprehension. This lets me know that my student is retaining information and understanding. I like to say stop, especially my first two sentences or my first page, because I need to know that my child is understanding what he's reading, or at least visually creating these visual ideas in his head or her head of what they're reading. And you want to ask them and talk. Okay. So I want you to just stop, talk, and retell. Those are the strategies. And then at the end, you have the 3-2 strategies. 3, what 3 things you learned? 2, what 2 interesting facts? So what you learned, facts, and what question you still have, because you're going to ask many, many questions, like my 5-year-old has a lot of questions. Okay. Now, vocabulary. Vocabulary is one of the strongest predictors of reading comprehension. It builds up background knowledge. The more words children know, the easier it becomes to understand what they read. So I want to show you a strategy where is upgrading your everyday words. So instead of big, oh, that the dog is so big, mom. Well, where are let's upgrade that word, right? That's going to be a new word. Let's upgrade. What does upgrade mean, mom? Okay, mom, Mateo, that word means that we're going to try a big boy word, and big also means enormous. So that's an enormous dog or gigantic. It means the same thing. And you're talking just like this to your son or your daughter, right? Um, Instead of happy, we can use, oh, I was so happy to go to the fair. Or what about I was so thrilled to go to the fair? I was so delighted to go. Right. We're changing our everyday words, and our everyday words are what we call in education our tier 1 words. Um, so we want to upgrade them to tier 2 words, right? And tier 2 words are the most powerful words. Okay. Um, and then eventually they will learn that, and this is just me, teaching, you know, um, the process of the vocabulary. Tier 3 words are just related to domain. So it's specific to an academic area. So those are words that they're not going to see if they see isotope, right? That's in science, or photosynthesis is in science, or kinesthetic, it's like in physics, right? We want to just have that understanding that we can change our most basic words to tier 2 words, right? And that, how do you do that parent side is you bring it back to a dinner. And I like dinner table questions because it is the highest leverage of literacy activity you can do. So it's free, it's daily, it's also backed by a lot of the science of research information that we have. And for example, if I give you the word, let's say good, what's another word for good? Who can tell me? Another word for good. Because we say good all the time. Oh, today was good. It was great. What is one word that you can use instead of good?
Amazing.
Amazing. Amazing, as an educator, we hear amazing a lot. So it's kind of like an everyday word. What about marvelous? Do we use marvelous a lot? No, no, right? So that's what I mean. It's when we're thinking about those upgrades, it's words that we don't typically use, but are higher order words, and it builds the background knowledge. We use amazing a lot, and good. They kind of go in hand in hand. We use more good and some amazing, but tier 2, I want you to think about powerful words, right? We're gonna upgrade and replace it. Okay. So then you go into your dinner, right? You're having dinner and you say, um, was today marvelous? Right? Because you already talked about good. You're not using your new word, right? Did anything marvelous happen today at school? So this encourages them to expand that distributed vocabulary and connect the question to it, okay, into that word. Questions on this? So I want you to think about this game. Okay. This is something that you can do at home. So you're gonna turn your upgrading and think about an everyday word, and you're having this conversation, and you can say, okay, that word instead of good, you're gonna notice it, right? You're gonna get a jar, and this jar is gonna be your vocabulary word jar, right? And this is, or you can have a flashcard. I just like the jar, that's just me, but you can have a collection of flashcards, or you can have a book where you're writing these informations in, and you're going to brainstorm with your child and say, okay, well, instead of good, is there another word? You're gonna probably use this later on because a lot of our kids are use good. You're saying there's another word for good. You're gonna say, oh, marvelous. Oh, that's a new word they probably don't know. And you'll put it in your jar, you'll put it in your notebook, you're writing your sticky note. Maybe you have a bunch of sticky notes and you put them in the refrigerator or in the room so you can see it and you write the word. So they're exposed to the word, right? So the idea is to fill the jar, fill, the wall, or fill the door, the room door with a new word, right? And once you fill that door, once you fill the jar, once you fill this notebook, you can get a special treat. It's just to encourage and swapping out the words for everyday use, right? So instead of, happy, we use marvelous. Instead of sad, we use remorse. Instead of big, we use gigantic, right? And we put together in this little, it could be a small page. And you could say, today or this week we're gonna work on these words and we're gonna put it here. And then when we fill it up, then we get a special treat. And that's your decision as a parent. Okay, and just finding ways to encourage them for them. Now, we are constantly moving. As parents, we're constantly moving. And one of the rooted of science of reading is the phonological awareness, which involves, the 5 pillars of reading. You can do this in a car ride. Okay, car rides can be fun and you can build these skills. Okay, so if we start at the grocery store, okay, can you find the cereal, and what cereal? Name me a cereal that you find in the store, and I'll say Kellogg's. Great. I'm looking for a cereal named Kellogg's. What's the first sound? With the K. Can you find a cereal with the letter K? Right? You're incorporating these phonological pieces. What letter does the milk start with? And you maybe have a special milk and it has the word lactate for all. What letter is that? Oh, lac. Okay, it says lactate, right? At the grocery store, you can even compare prices, right? Find the items and compare, is this more or is this less? Right? Those are things you can start working on. In the kitchen, you read recipes and follow directions together. Oh, if your recipe says here to open the spaghetti box, put the spaghetti in the hot pot, and it's not just a hot pot, it's a ginormous silver pot. You're expanding it, okay? In the car, you can play I Spy. I Spy something starting with letter S. Or you can say I spy something starting an object starting with the letter right? You say the letter, you give the sound, right? I want you to know that literacy happens anywhere and everywhere, and you can make it as engaging as you can or want, based on whatever you have at home. Okay. Even syllable clapping. Oh, we went to the grocery store and we got a watermelon. What? Can we clap watermelon? Watermelon. Oh, look at that. How many syllables? 4. Good job. High five. You're engaging. Okay. The best way you can. Right? Questions. Okay. Now, summer, it's a summer slide. Okay. And I say that with summer slide because some of the information that they've learned the previous year kind of tends to get downloaded. And there's a lot of research by the time they go back to school, they have lost at least 20% of the information they gained. So we want to talk about how we can get this deeper with some at least dialogic reading. So if you're wondering where to start this summer, I like to do this 10-10 plan. And all you're doing is 10 minutes of reading. 10 minutes about talking about the reading, 10 minutes about drawing what you read, writing what you read, or retelling me what you read. And we're having this conversation if the student doesn't want to draw. Or maybe the student tells you the conversation and then hey, can you draw? Can you write? And we're working on spelling, vocabulary, working on that reading comprehension piece, syntax, right? And that's just 30 minutes total. So And you can pick out a day and say, okay, we're going to do this every Tuesday and Thursday. Create a plan or ask your child, say, hey, when do you want to when do you want to involve this, right? At the beginning of the day, at the midday, after lunch, after nap. Here, all that matters is the consistency more than perfection. And I say that because we're doing this as a team. You, your son, your daughter, it's a team effort, but we're helping develop these skills. Okay? Now, okay. I think I'm in the last 10 minutes. Woo. Okay. I have a lot of resources for you all. And I will share them in a document so you can share out as well. Each of these provides something different. And I am going to start with reading Rockets, and hopefully it will take me to where it goes. Did it take me where it went? Yes? Yay! I can't see the screen, sorry. Okay. This link will bring you literacy at home. There is so much information here, but it will teach you how to do a read aloud. Okay. It gives you a how to target concerns and problems, but it has more than that. I wanted to show you. There is reading basics, right? And the link will send directly to the homepage. It will talk to you about reading, but it will also it gives you videos. It has a lot of the teacher stuff that you can learn about, okay? But it talks about fluency, it talks about vocabulary, it talks about by grade level, what are your kindergarten milestones, right? Um, or your second grader. What should we expect about literacy students at this grade level? Okay. But if we go back here, this is a good one. Okay. Um, it also has for English and Spanish. And then this part here, reading adventure packs for families. This one, I thought that was pretty cool because it has activities. And reading adventure pack music. You can download a PDF in Spanish and English, and it's gonna feature a book of mama, and it's going to become something that a dinner that you can play at alligator ball. It gives you the whole directions, it gives you everything. So it has a lot of activities that you can do and print out, and it tells you the books and everything. That's just one. The other one, this one, it's not free, unfortunately, but it is it's $7.25 a month if you want to subscribe. But I'm gonna take this out. It gives you all the books. These are audiobooks and on the online. Okay. But it is $7.25. That's the only one that does cost. Then you also have, oh, I know, Story Online. These are celebrities and famous people that read stories to you. So if I actually click let's see, Abdul story. So it's over. He will read that story for you. And you could talk about it, you could hear it, it could be part of as a read out loud. And they'll read the whole story for you. And there's a plethora of stories, and it'll give you a background of it. It's a really good tool. We use it for our students when we do read alouds. It's a nice resource to like to go to. And then you also have Oxford. They have more activities here. They have free activities by age group. So when I go here, I just click, I have an 8 to 9-year-old. And then you have word games. Word games. It gives you examples, and it gives you the activities down here, and books that we can get for them. And then the other ones are just also resources. This one is the Florida Center Research here in Florida. They also provide great information, and they do it by grade levels. And you can go down to say high frequency words because it's a big popular one, and it'll give you a high frequency memory game, and it'll give you the instructions how to do it. And you can do this with just index card. It just the setup will be right there for you. So you have a really great resource I will give Gabby, and I'll send out a link for them in a PDF. And questions. I know I'm like I have 5 minutes left, 3 minutes left. Anyone has questions? The one thing I hear a lot is my child hates reading, or um that it doesn't connect, or maybe they're scared. And I want you to know that you don't need everything on this list. Just pick one and start there. Okay. And I also like to talk about and say that diagnosis is not a ceiling, it's the key that unlocks the kind of teaching. And if you want more support from me, this is not my email. Okay. My email is Kristy@lucyproject.org. I don't know why it says Brittany. But it's Kristy@lucyproject.org. I'm not sure what happened there. But you showed up tonight, and I want you guys to know that you're already doing it, and that already tells everything that you know how much you care. I know being a parent is hard, but if you remember one thing is one, breathe, okay? Because we all got this. We're all going through it. Your child's brain can learn to read, and the right teaching makes all the difference. So I want you to talk to them, read with them, listen to them, answer the questions, and ask them questions. Okay? Questions, concerns, comments.
I think the resources are going to be great because I think that's where a lot of us parents lack. Sometimes we're not sure where to go, and you put something in Google and it can be a little overwhelming. So having this list, I think, will be very helpful.
And every one here is a little bit different, even coloring Colorado. It gives you tip sheets, which is I think will be a great resource for parents. For it has for babies, and if you look for like even let's get that one. You can gives you more ideas to do at home, right? But it's also backed by Reading Rockets. So their information comes from essentially Reading Rockets. That's why you'll see Reading Rockets is my number one resource because it's a great free tool. And here, because from what I remember, we have a lot of Creole speakers in the islands. So I believe you can change the language. So if you have a person or a family that's French speaking or Creole speaking, you can change any of these into that language. Okay.
Hi, Kristy.
So,
We just have
hi.
a question from a parent that just asks,
Yes.
will you also be sharing your slide deck by any chance?
Yeah, I can share that. I'll send it to Gabby, and I'll make sure the slider has like linkable links.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So there's that one. This one is actually also a good one. This also talks about the science research if you want to know more a little bit about it. And then it didn't take me to my link. I'll make sure I give you that link. We have Third Hour. No, yeah, that's also a really great one because that's also my second favorite one. It's because all these free activities are there. But so Bonnie, how old is your son? Or Gabby, sorry.
Mine's only one, so.
Yes, that's why I was like, wait, no. Gabby, how old is your son?
Mine's 7.
7. So you're in this age range, right? And then it tells us about a website here for Micro Rosen. It will take you to that website and you can explore that a little bit more. But what I like about this one, it talks about the phonics guidance. And if your child is having a hard time with these vowels or these letters, and then blending is also a struggle, right? So if you want to learn how to do it, you can come here. So it'll walk you through it and it'll give you examples. And you can change it up here with different letters, sounds, and it's a fun tool for that. That's for just for that one. But then it has more down here. It'll give you ideas. And then she'll talk about the car training games. If you want more ideas for how to incorporate that in your car, ideas are here. And these are practical, right? That's why we, even when we cook together, right? Here you can even get some free recipes that you can try at home. But then it says make your own comic for your son that likes comic books, right? Or make your own tongue twisters. Count coins. And it gives you recommendations for a book. So related to addition, related to, warrior monkeys, all these little things are here for you and they're free. So you will get that in your slide deck and you have access to it. Okay. Questions? More questions? No? Okay. Okay.
Yay. Wow.
All
Well,
right.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think these are great. I'm going to go back and print out the comic book one.
It's a
Thank
good
you.
one.
We're
You're
so,
welcome.
we appreciate you and sharing some knowledge. And
Anytime.
I think just the fact also that you have your babies and you understand what a lot of us parents are going through, it also adds to the information.
Yeah.
So,
And if I say all these things, it comes from my 5-year-old. My son is Mateo. And if I say Mateo, it's my son. And I am going through the same process as you and all the questions and the reading, and we're in that stage, right? So I know sometimes it's hard being a parent because we have all the responsibilities, but even taking 10 minutes anywhere we can to incorporate something, that will make a difference. So just pick one thing that you learned today and just do it for the rest of the week, and then the following week do something else, and then you take it from there.
yeah, I
Okay.
think we
Well,
just had
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think we had a question.
Mhm.
Let me see here. It says, uh, would you be able to recommend my kid what to do for what to do for my 10-year-old? She's not special ed kid, to work or to do over the summer. So I guess we have shared some of these activities that that you have just went over, and then
Mhm.
that would be definitely
Yes.
we're going to be putting a pack together for parents that have registered. On our registration form, there was a question if you wanted some digital resources, book list or anything like that. And so some of those activities then the children will be able to do over the summer.
And just to add to that as well, if people have other questions or they want to make sure that they, signed up for certain things, you can always email the Bonnie at EEO Bahamas, where you would have received the link from. You can email me or just straight to EEO at eeobahamas.org, and we will be happy to answer those questions and connect you with resources. And I think related to the special education question, what Kristy was talking about before with the multisensory is so important, I think, with acting, going to the beach, tracing letters out in the sand and doing that kind of to commit it to muscle memory and things like that are really, really, really critical.
Even jumping, if you have a hopscotch, right? If you have hopscotch, you're jumping into letters and sounds. You can create instead of numbers, right? We're used to doing hopscotch with numbers. You can do it with letters. You can do it with words. You can do it if you're blending a word and you're hopping into, let's say, even a hula hoop. That could be part of you want to just involve movement anywhere we can. So if I have my kids who are having a hard time blending and they have to get the wiggles out, I say, okay, let's hop in every square that we see in the office or outside. We get some chalk, and I go, okay, bat was my word, and they're jumping in each letter and they're blending in at the end. Bat or hat or whatever the word may be. So just that gross motor movement is really important for that muscle memory. Don't be afraid to get creative. I know sometimes it can be scary, but you guys already are doing it without even realizing it. Okay.
Okay.
So
Well,
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I will not take yes, Samantha.
yeah, we are recording, so we will share some we can also share the recording for parents. I know we've been having some power outages throughout the island, so there might have been parents that wanted to join but could not. So we'll be reaching out to whoever registered and see if we can share with some.
And
Okay.
anything else you may need, Gabby and team, let me know. Always
Okay,
happy to
thank
help.
you so much. And parents, thank you so much for making the time to
Thank
come and
you.
listen and get more help and information for your children. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you. You'll have a good night.
have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.